Buenos días, clase. Hoy tenemos una clase muy corta en que vamos a leer un poquito sobre el Cono Sur. Y el Cono Sur se encuentra en Latinoamérica porque parece a un cono, like an ice cream cone, a little bit like you can see almost the southern tip of South America. Y se compone por 4 países. Por ejemplo, aquí tenemos 4 países. Tenemos Uruguay, Argentina, Paraguay y Chile. Y en este capítulo nos vamos a enfocar en Argentina y Chile. Y ustedes van a leer en la página 198. Ustedes van a leer y responder a estas preguntas verdad o falso según el texto. Y es importante hacer esta actividad porque nunca sabes, maybe it will come up on an exam. These are really good cultural questions. So I want you guys to go to 198, read, and answer true or false. So pause the video now. Go ahead and do that. Muy bien, vamos a ver. Número 1, más de 60% de la población es de descendencia europea. ¿Dónde se encuentra eso? Pues se encuentra esta información aquí, ¿no? Pues se dice que en Argentina es 97% y en Chile es 65%, pues podemos decir que esto es verdad. Oops. Ooh, that's not gonna work for me. Esto es verdad. That's sloppy. Sorry about that, guys. Let me disconnect my keyboard. Maybe not. Because I'll need to stop this video eventually. So Argentina has had a lot of European migration, especially at the start of the 20th century. A lot from Italy, France, Germany, and Spain. And it does have an indigenous population as well, called the Mapuche, but they're a very small percent of the population. Whereas in Chile had a lot of migration from Europe as well, but it has a lot larger indigenous population than Argentina does. Pregunta número 2. Ni Chile ni Argentina han tenido presidentes mujeres. ¿Esto es verdad o falso? Esto es falso, pues aquí tenemos la información. En Argentina, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, y en Chile, Michelle Bachelet, ¿no? Pues los dos han tenido presidentes mujeres. So we're going to mark this as false, because they both had female presidents. Argentina ha ganado una Copa Mundial, pero Chile no. Pues aquí tenemos esta información. Los dos han ganado la Copa Mundial 2 veces con Brasil. Son los únicos 3 países fuera de Europa que lo han hecho. Pues esto es falso. Sorry for my very sloppy handwriting. Because both have won World Cups, soccer World Cups. Los gauchos son un grupo que existen en los 2 países. Vamos a ver. Pues aquí dice que sí. Dice que es verdad. Gauchos, kind of the idea of cowboys, but not quite cowboys as we have them, the same idea as we have them in the United States. Cowboys were often racially mixed, white, African, indigenous, and they lived on the plains, more in Argentina than in Chile, in a place called the Pampas. Las Pampas. In Argentina and Uruguay. And they're part of the national imaginary. They're sort of the national symbol of both countries, although neither group was treated very well. This is getting into a little bit into the reeds, but Argentina and Uruguay are both known for meat production. They produce a lot of meat because they have the Pampas, which are wide open plains, sort of like the Great Plains of the United States. The gauchos used to roam these plains and were involved in meat production and all that. And what really changed was refrigeration towards the end of the 19th century. And once refrigeration came along, land started to be divided up for farms, for mass farms, and things like that. And all of a sudden, there wasn't really room for gauchos anymore, and they sort of became outlaws. And there's a lot of academic literature about that. One of my former professors at Ohio State is a renowned expert in gaucho literature, and I did a class with him many years ago, and it's actually really fascinating. So kind of like the idea of the cowboy, but not quite the idea of the cowboy. Buenos Aires se conoce como el Londres de Latino de las Américas. Pues bien, vamos a ir. Oh, llamada La París de las Américas. So not London, but Paris. So we're going to mark this one as falso. Borges escribió el realismo mágico. Ahí está, realismo mágico. Esto es verdad. The book is kind of simplifying that a little bit. I don't know if I'd exactly classify him as realismo mágico. So if you're asking yourself if you may have encountered realismo mágico before, or maybe not, magical realism was born in Latin America in the 50s and 60s, and it was the first literary genre that Latin America pioneered and exported to the world. And it's still in use, although less now, because it's kind of become a little bit cliche. Borges came a little bit before that time, but if you've never read Borges, you should. His works, his short stories mostly, are very philosophical in nature. They're mind bending. They're really mind bending, and they force you to think about things you may not have thought about otherwise. So do read him. And there's another one, Julio Cortázar, who's like the spiritual son, he's called, of Jorge Luis Borges, who has great short stories as well, and he's sort of known as I wouldn't describe him as magical realism either, but yeah, great, fantastic writers that you should definitely read. Maybe you will read at some point because they're very well known. El tango nació en Santiago de Chile. ¿Dónde? A ver. Oh, aquí dice en Argentina, ¿no? Dice en Argentina, el tango en Argentina. So esto es falso. Tango was born at the beginning of the 20th century, and it was really born from a cultural mix in Buenos Aires, especially with African immigrants and the descendants of African slaves. Chile es el país más largo del mundo. Es el país más largo del mundo. There we go, the longest country in the world. So have you ever seen Chile? This is verdad. Have you ever seen Chile on the map? It's very long and very thin, up to 300 miles wide at its widest point, but 2,700 miles long. So traveling from north to south in that country, if you were to drive it, would take you a very, very long time. And of course it traverses, starting in the north with deserts and very dry area, the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world, all the way to the south, which just about touches Antarctica, which is spectacular if you think about it. Disculpa. En Chile existen muchos viñedos de alta calidad. A ver. Oh, aquí dice, en las afueras de la ciudad hay muchos viñedos de alta calidad. Esto es verdad. You guys are probably mostly underage, so I know that you haven't had wine before, but Chile is very well known for its wine. Very good wine. When you guys turn 21, I'm sure you will partake, but not until then, right? Other things. Esto es Gabriela Mistral. She's the first person in Latin America to win a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1945. She was a poet, former school teacher. Her poems are beautiful. Look them up. They're really gorgeous poetry to read. If I think one of the ones, the Four Queens, Las Cuatro Reinas, is one of my favorites from her. Just a really beautiful poem that starts with four young girls playing in the valley of Elqui, where she was born, and how they grow up and they have vastly different lives. Anyway, I'm just rambling on now. Pero ya está. This is a very short class, of course, because you wrote your chapter test, your chapter quiz. So I hope you did well on that y nos vemos mañana.